Is the Motorola Edge 50 Fusion better than the Nothing Phone 2a? That is the question we're asking. We're about to find the answer because on paper, it should be. Coming in at 10 to 20% cheaper, the Motorola Edge has this really slim profile but has a 5000 milliampere battery, same as the Nothing Phone 2a. It's got a 144Hz screen, which is slightly better, and comes with the charger in the box, which is very nice for someone who's going in for their first budget smartphone ever. But it also has an IP68 rating. Now you might be thinking, why this phone? There's so many other phones to compare against the Nothing Phone 2a. Well, two reasons. One, I searched and this seemed like a good price to performance in theory comparison, but I was curious to see what Motorola was up to. Their Razr lineup has been killing it lately and I wanted to know if that trickled down to the budget end of the spectrum. Also, it comes in hot pink. Question is, did it live up to the on-paper specifications or not? No, I bought it. This is what I found out. First impressions are very nice. This does not feel like just another cheap plasticky phone. In fact, I think it has metal sides. I think it's got mostly a metal construction and it is very solidly built. It's also super slim and it's got this sort of tall boy presence and that makes it very comfortable in the hand to use. It's got this silicone soft back. It is prone to getting dust, but you can use a wet cloth and just wipe it down and then you're fine. I don't know how that holds up over time though. Overall, not a cheap plasticky smartphone as you are usually used to having in the $250, $300 price point, which is what I got this at. That's a good start. Now, diving a little deeper, we're gonna have to talk about the actual usage experience. So let's split it up into a few sections. Number one is media consumption. I can already tell you that's really good. This is a great screen. It's got stereo speakers. They're not the greatest speakers, but the screen is top notch. I don't like curved screens. I actually didn't know that until I got this phone. I thought, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Turns out it is. You don't miss anything, right? You're not actually missing parts of the video. It just, when you're watching a video, it kind of feels like it. This is a good screen. This is bright, this is reasonably color accurate, and is a great media consumption screen. Just wish it wasn't curved. But apart from that, when you get into it, the user experience is worth talking about. So first, let's talk about the apps that Motorola bundles in, because it does a lot. So there's the Facebook and LinkedIn of the world. That's bloatware, but it's there. Then there's the Moto apps, right? So you've got these apps in a Moto folder, which aren't really apps. They're more like spaces within which all the features that are related to each other are huddled up together. So for example, you've got this Smart Connect feature, which basically is everything to do with an Android phone connecting to another device. So like a PC or a monitor. If you wanted to use this as a webcam for your PC, then this is where you would go to activate that. Then there's the Moto Family Space app, which does roughly the same thing, sets up family spaces. You can choose what apps you can run on which Android devices for your kids and so on and so forth. And the theme here is that none of this stuff is new. Most Android phones can do this stuff, but Motorola has gone a step ahead and put everything in one place. This is good for convenience in general, but also for anyone who's a little worried about the Android experience, who thinks you need to be a power user to actually use and find all the features. Well, they've put multiple features in one place, and I think that's not a bad thing to have. They also have this unplugged thing where if you start that, you can have this very minimalist version of the Android launcher. It's basically another launcher. You could download one third party, but Motorola's bundled in for you, and that way you're not distracted by your social media. You just have what you need. I don't know why there's a VPN on there. They're not sponsoring this video, I swear. Oh, and by the way, members get giveaways. Yeah, just saying, if you're a YouTube member or Patreon member, paying member, then every couple of months, every few months, I give giveaways. I just did one on the last video. Go check that video out. It's a cool earphone that's coming out to you know who you are. And yeah, become a member, support the channel. Okay, back to the video. Now, apart from the Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Motorola apps, you've also got bloatware. I mean, there's so many games I never asked for, but they're there. You've got Block Puzzle, Candy Crush, Color Water, Cubes Empire, Guess There's Something, Ice Cream Incorporated, Power Pop. As I scroll, there's more and more coming up. There are a lot of games bundled in, and these games, they're just like, they're for advertisements, right? We know this, and there are at least 1 or 2 app stores for these games as well, in case you want even more advertisements thrown in your face. And I'm not a big fan of this. It's like they take your money and they say, you know what, your money's not enough. We're going to suck your time out and even more money from you because you're too cheap. That's not good. In comparison, the Nothing Phone 2A comes with no bloatware whatsoever. None. Just a couple of nothing things, maybe widgets, and that's it. Nothing to take up your time. I know most people are okay with uninstalling this stuff, and that's fine, more power to you. But there is something to be said for respecting the end user, respecting your customer. I don't appreciate that. Having said that, the user experience is basically stock Pixel with a little bit of Motorola sprinkled in. That's not a bad thing. I think the stock Pixel experience is great. There's a couple of nice design features, like for example, if you pull down the notification shade, the brightness slider, it's big, good for finger usage, not some tiny little slider like you have on the Nothing Phone 2A. And it's clear as to what that slider is. There's also this thing where if you use the volume bar and you press more, you come with 5 volume bars for various things, notifications, ringtones and such. But if you manipulate them, basically, if you manipulate them, it makes you listen to the volume you've set, and that way you know what you've actually said. The Nothing Phone does not do that. There's also the Motorola customization. You can change the icons, you can change the fonts. In fact, apart from the bloatware, this whole user interface is pretty good on the face of it. The problem then is when you start using it a little bit more, you realize that there are some very deep-seated issues. Number one, the fingerprint reader takes noticeably longer than the Nothing Phone 2A. And that's a small thing, but it adds up over time. Once you're in the interface, everything works pretty slick. But once you start loading up with apps, you realize that the phone begins to stutter and become slow. And that is also something you end up noticing over time. Plus, even opening some apps like the camera app takes longer than the Nothing Phone 2A. So in general, this phone, once you start using it a little bit, you realize is a little bit on the slow side, and that is fresh out of the box, mind you. Another thing I noticed is haptics. Now, in my opinion, haptics makes a massive difference to the overall user experience, and the Nothing Phone 2A is, it's the best haptics I have ever felt in the budget category of phone. That's awesome. This is like everything else in the budget segment, terrible haptics, and to me that cheapens the feel a lot. But you know what makes it worse? The camera. So in broad daylight, this camera works fine. You basically get a pretty good picture with the highlights controlled well and the shadows boosted. All that stuff works great. The problem is when it's less than spectacular conditions, well, see for yourself. This is an indoor shot and you can see how the Nothing Phone 2A controls the highlight, boosts the shadows a bit, and the Motorola completely messes up the image. That is way too dark where it's supposed to be. The brightness is off. It's just weird as heck. Not to mention the color science on the Motorola is appalling. It is just completely off. Don't even get me started on skin tone, skin texture. There's over sharpening, over smoothing. Every trap that a budget phone can fall into, the Motorola falls into. And that is very, very disappointing. But it gets worse. Like, I know the Nothing Phone 2A produces softer images, especially in the shadows. You'll find it's noticeably softer, but that's because they're not over sharpening it. And also that leads to no artifacting, whereas in the Motorola you'll find white spots in the shadows sometimes, other weird artifacts, just over processing the heck out of everything. Alright, so when it comes to video, I'm going to say that I like the colors again of the Nothing better. The Motorola seems to pop a little bit more in terms of color, but it's a lot of processing happening on the Motorola. It still seems like better quality. So, you know, across, if someone else is looking at you on a video call, I think the Motorola camera might do a little bit better, but the fact is there's a lot of processing. And the color science is off. Even in this case, the Nothing is better color science wise, even though it's a little bit yellow green tinged. I think the Motorola just looks better in front camera quality wise, but you can see when it becomes a little dull. Look at how over processed my face looks in the Motorola now when I'm moving into a duller scene. That is really not great. Whereas the Nothing, it just feels a little more natural. When I'm brightly lit, I mean, I guess it's okay. Both of them are fine, but in duller conditions, I'm picking the Nothing just so I don't look like an absolute hyper processed thing. But yeah, for outright quality though, the Nothing is very, very not great. Like they're both not great cameras. You can go 4K on the Motorola, but honestly, I don't see a difference between Full HD and 4K with the front camera in video mode on the Motorola. And what makes it all worse is that It doesn't even take a photo quickly. So the Nothing Phone 2a is not great on this either. If you want to capture a moment really quick, which is a huge use case for smartphones these days, then, well, the Nothing Phone 2a might make you miss a shot. Even in broad daylight, it takes a little while to take the shot. I think it's gotten a little better with firmware updates, but it's not fantastic. The Motorola is objectively worse. You probably will miss the shot. And honestly, I know budgets are important, but at some point, you'll look back in your life and think, was it worth the couple of $100 being saved to miss that moment in my life? For me, I don't think it is. Your mileage may vary. You can also use a third-party app for your camera photos, but then you may not get that image stabilization that comes with it. In broad daylight, as long as you don't have to take a quick photo, you can get some decent results out of this, and the video stabilization is not bad, but this is not a great photo taking experience. We interrupt this message to ask you to subscribe to the channel. I've been told I should do that more often. Okay, subscribe. Back to the video. And look, I know what you're saying. These are not huge things, right? So the fingerprint reader is a little bit slower, and the apps take, what, like a fraction of a second longer to open? Big deal, you can get used to that. When you're on a budget, you have to get used to these things. But you don't though, right? These things tend to add up over time, and your experience does feel lesser and lesser because of it. Not to mention that the stutters, the lag, the slow camera, the slow fingerprint sensor, all of this is on a brand new phone. In a couple of years, things are not going to get better. They're probably going to get a little worse at best. Like, don't get me wrong, if you're in the market for a very inexpensive smartphone that has a solid feel to it, this is well built and has a beautiful screen with an IP68 rating and a 5000 milliampere battery, which, by the way, same battery life as the Nothing Phone 2a, 1.5 days. Not even joking. That is awesome. And 68 watt fast charging and the charger in the box. Then the Motorola Edge 50 Fusion should be one of your options, especially if you want a phone in hot pink. Not too many phones come in that. But if you feel like because you're on a budget, because you can't afford more, that you have to settle for a slow fingerprint reader, a slow camera, a slow phone in general, and a lot of bloatware that's added in and thrown in your face, and bad camera results to boot, then I don't think you do. Because yes, this is 10-20% cheaper, but this, well, first of all, it's got a flat screen, which is nice. Doesn't have an IP58 or 68 rating, but it does have a mostly stutter-free user experience, comes with no bloatware, has an okay camera, but a camera that gets the color science right, does not over-sharpen the shadows, does not over-smoothen your face, and gets some pretty good results for a budget phone. Plus something that's also quite distinctive and styling, if that's your thing. I don't think the Motorola Edge 50 Fusion makes a good case for itself. And I think if I just bothered with the camera a little bit more, not even the processor or how it's implemented, just the camera a little bit more, it would have been an option. But for now, I'm sticking to the Nothing Phone 2a. What would you do? Okay, if you want to see more smartphones being covered on this channel, then tell me and I'll do it. Till next time, stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.